Hello and welcome to another exciting episode of Pittsburgh Sports Memories podcast. On today's episode, we're going over the top 10 Ben Roethlisberger games. So, in case you were under a rock for the last 20 years, Ben Roethlisberger is a Super Bowl winning quarterback for the Pittsburgh Steelers, and he's had a lot of memorable moments with them. He's only ever played for the Steelers, and he's probably one of their best quarterbacks, if not. I don't know, I guess we've debated that before between Bradshaw and him. It would be a tough call, probably, but instead of debating that, we're going to go over his top 10 games. So it's kind of a ripoff of David Letterman. So to start off with, how about some fun Ben Roethlisberger facts, some fun facts about Ben Roethlisberger. Are you ready, Tim?
Yeah, fire away. I love fun facts.
All right. Did you know his father was a pitcher and quarterback at Georgia Tech?
I did not know that.
Yeah. I bet you knew this. Did you know he was the youngest quarterback to win a Super Bowl?
I do remember that, yes.
Yes. He has his own line of barbecue sauce. I've never tried it, so I don't know how good it is.
If he put his name on it, it has to be quality.
Quality product. You don't think he pulled like a Krusty the Clown? I approve this product and or service. Please treat Mr. Black as you we do not get paid by The Simpsons to make Simpsons references.
No, but we should.
Yeah. Let's see. Until 2020, he was the quarterback that had the most wins at First Energy Stadium in Cleveland. Do you realize the problem with that situation?
Right. He was not the home quarterback of the Browns.
Yeah.
So Baker passed him up.
Yeah. And now I guess it's back to being that maybe. I mean, I don't know. I mean, did they win? They won in Cleveland last year, right? So it's got to be. Well, no, then Baker Mayfield won a couple games last year, so maybe he's got.
Even though Baker doesn't play for Cleveland anymore, I guess he's got that record pretty secure for the next few years.
Yeah. He is ranked 5th all time in NFL career passing yards as of right now, 64,000. He's 8th all time in touchdowns at 418 and 5th in completion among quarterbacks. He has the highest career winning percentage, and he's only one of 6 quarterbacks to have beaten 31 of the 32 current NFL teams. I don't know why he could just never beat the Steelers, but
yeah, he always struggled against them.
Yeah, he did. So without further delay or whatever, we're going to jump into the list. And since I'm a big guy and I like donuts, I decided to make it a baker's dozen. So at number 11, you know, it's a good day when you get that extra donut, right? I don't know. Do you eat donuts, Tim? You only eat gluten-free donuts, huh?
I like donuts. I eat donuts with gluten in them, but I don't eat them often, I have to admit. But I like them.
Yeah, sure you do. Sure you do, Tim. Anyway.
They don't fit the TB12 regimen. I mean, oops.
Yeah. I don't know what Ben Roethlisberger's regimen was. I'm sure he didn't pass up a donut.
It was not TB12, I can tell you that.
Yeah. So at number 11, does anybody remember the Baltimore San Antonio game? And I totally misspelled in my notes, making it San Antonio game. So it's like Baltimore, the Pittsburgh played a game in San Antonio, Texas at the Alamo Dome or something. I don't know.
Is this the 2008 game where the division was on the line?
Yes, it was.
I remember that game.
Yeah, so this is the Steelers, and as usual, they're in a battle for AFC North supremacy, and the Steelers need to win to keep ahead of Baltimore in the division. So what happened was Ben runs around like he does many times on this list, and he throws a touchdown to, what may or may not have been a touchdown to Santonio Holmes. I'm still not sure whether it was or not. I think we have some audio here.
Roethlisberger, first option, shut down. Looking for a second, a third option. Now throws it. Man's there. Is he in the end zone? Is he in or outside? They're going to mark him outside, and I guarantee you people are going to want to look at this one.
Well, inside 2 minutes, it can be challenged from up top. If I was the Steelers, I would not call a timeout.
After reviewing the play, the receiver had 2 feet down in the end zone with possession of the ball. We have a touchdown.
It's a touchdown for Pittsburgh.
So, Tim, what else do you remember about that game besides like Santonio Holmes maybe not catching a touchdown? Do you think it was a touchdown? I have no idea. It was so close. I mean, they could have called it either way, and I couldn't argue with it.
I think it that was also third down, I believe. So the Steelers were down by 3. So what I remember is it would have been very interesting had they not called it a touchdown, because they would have then been on like the 1-inch line. And do you go for it on fourth down at that point, or do you kick a field goal? And it was a very, very low scoring game. I believe it was like 9-6 or something at the time.
Yes.
It was typical Pittsburgh Baltimore games in that era. But yeah, it was a great win, and it ended up being very significant, right? Because they play each other in the playoffs, and the Steelers host really on the back of that win.
Yeah, it kind of set them up in the playoffs, because maybe they probably don't win in Baltimore in the playoffs. I mean, I don't know. Have the Steelers ever played a game in Baltimore in the playoffs?
They have, just not against the Ravens.
The Ravens, that's what I mean. Yeah, I mean they beat like that Burt Bell and the Colts way back in the 70s. But yeah, I meant it's been a while. So now into number 10, and that would be Super Bowl 40. So I know. A lot of people like to not make, but you know what? Ben made enough throws in this game to win the Super Bowl, right? He made that big third down pass to Hines Ward, and made a couple other passes that they needed to get, but he just made enough plays there. So I anytime you win a Super Bowl, no matter how you do it, and if he doesn't throw that interception like in that third quarter, the game's probably a cakewalk. So Ben gets a little bit of roughed up over that one, but hey, that's why it's at number 10. Maybe the Santonio should have been at 10 and this should have been at 11, but it's my list. I'll do what I want with it.
Yeah, I agree. It's a little bit of an unfair, how history remembers that game with his performance, because he had the interception, he had a really low passer rating. And it's funny because the other guy that had I think the guy that he shares the lowest passer rating for a Super Bowl with is for a winning quarterback, right? Not like Tony Eason going 0 for 10 against the 85 Bears.
Yeah.
But for a winning quarterback, I believe it's John Elway in the Super Bowl where they beat the Packers. He had a really low passer rating in that game. But you know what? No one remembers that because he had that helicopter run on third down. He made a play. He made a big play. He made enough big plays. And Ben really did the same thing, but history doesn't remember it that way. So good call putting that on the list, Steve.
Oh, thank you, Tim. I'm glad you approve, at least.
I edit these podcasts, so if I didn't approve, then it was going to get cut.
Nice. I crave your approval.
As you should.
Sticking with well, no, not just, I guess. This is the Cowboys game in 2020. Is this COVID or, is post-COVID, COVID-tastic? I don't know. Somewhere in there. So this is when the Steelers were 8-0, and they were looking to stay that way. And so this is like classic Ben. Do you remember, like, right before the half, like, the guy jumped into his knees, and he was all hurt, and he was like, I'm all hurt, and I'm Ben, and I'm not going to be able to play. And then, like, Mason Rudolph comes in, and he's like, I don't like Mason Rudolph. I want to play. So he comes back and, like, leads the Steelers to victory. And I think he had 3 touchdowns in that game. So at least that's why I have written down. So he had a pretty good game, no interceptions. He has a really, really good game and hurt. And I really think that was kind of like after that, I don't think he was quite the same for whatever reason. So
Yeah, that was in Dallas. That was 2020, right? That was the COVID season.
Yeah.
So like no fans and all that kind of stuff. But they had come from behind in that game. It was a classic, like, team didn't play that good, but Ben just wills them to victory.
Yes, and like, even Mason Rudolph got some playing time. I think they missed a field goal. Did they hit? No, they hit a field goal right at the end of the half after Ben got hurt.
Yeah,
I think I remember that.
very long field goal. Yeah,
it was like 50-some yards. I think there were a few people in that stadium, but like you said, it wasn't like the usual like 100,000 that are there because it was like COVID time and stuff. So remember those? Remember COVID?
Yeah. Unfortunately, I do remember COVID. Yeah,
it's still here. So
yes.
So moving on to number 8. And we're gonna stick with. I guess we're gonna pile on the Cowboys, huh? So the Cowboys in his rookie year, they played the Cowboys in Dallas. And the Steelers were 5-1. They had lost their first game, but they had won 4 in a row, and they were looking to stay on a win streak with a rookie quarterback. So what happens, Tim? Well, the Steelers don't lose. Vinny was the quarterback, wasn't he? Yeah. So Vinny Testaverde, they don't lose to him. Vinny makes a horrific fumble, and Ben makes a couple great plays going down the stretch, and they have totally the comeback win. I think in this one he had 2 touchdowns, no interceptions again. And just a great comeback win, one for really it was kind of a glimpse of Big Ben moments to come.
That's a great way to describe that game. It was very early on in his career. He had beaten, I think, like Cincinnati and Cleveland at home.
In Miami,
he'd beaten Miami in that hurricane game. He had played well and he had made some plays, but this was like the first time they were going on the road. And that was when Parcells coached the Cowboys. They were a decent team. It was a big game. And it's like, boy, that was the one thing that we were missing for 25 years between Super Bowls was that kind of a quarterback. And that game was kind of the first glimpse of, man, we might really have something here.
Yeah, it was kind of a glimpse of things to come. I think he had like a play where he ran around and made a pass and did Ben kind of stuff. And I remember Vinny fumbled, didn't he? I think Casey Hampton forced a fumble on him or something.
So
yeah.
It's funny. Ben played a great game, did all this stuff, but really the Cowboys had the game pretty much wrapped up. They had a 3rd down. And it was one of those things where if you run the ball in the line of scrimmage, then you're going to have to punt, and the Steelers are going to have some time to drive down the field. But you could also gamble and pass for the 1st down, and then the game's over. So Parcells decided he was going to, let's just go for the 1st down. Let's end this thing right here and there. And Testaverde, he got hit. He fumbled. Kimo von Olhoff and picked it up and ran it back to the 10-yard line. And it was just classic, Vinny Testaverde could never play against the Steelers. He just always had his worst games and worst moments and worst turnovers against the Steelers. And this was 20 years into his career, and he was still doing it. It was beautiful. I think my favorite thing about that game was when he fumbled that ball, it was right on the star.
It was, yeah, I remember that, yeah. It was good old Vinny. He was the gift they kept on giving. And I don't know. No, was Belichick in New England? Yeah, Belichick. Okay, yeah, because next week. Well, that leads to number 7. Speaking of Bill Belichick and New England Patriots. So the Patriots game in Ben's rookie season, not the AFC Championship game, because that would be one of Ben's worst games. If we were doing a top 10 of Ben's worst games, that's definitely it. So now the Steelers are riding a 6-game winning streak. I think it was actually the week after. And they had with a rookie quarterback. So it's going in, and the Patriots had a 21-game winning streak. It's Halloween. You're not going to, the Tom Brady and Bill Belichick have kind of owned the Steelers up to that point. And what happens? Well, Ben lights up the Patriots defense for a couple of touchdowns. And the Steelers, I think Deshae Townsend had an interception, and it was 21-0 before the first quarter was even over. So they really piled on early, and then they held on through the second half. I think the Patriots mounted a little bit of a comeback, but they couldn't stop Bettis in the run. And that was another great moment where like Bettis ran over Rodney Harrison. Like he could have picked to go out of bounds, and he like jumped back inbounds just to hit Rodney Harrison. So, but I think I remember Ben too. Like he hit a really nice deep pass to Plexico Burress early in that game, and to kind of like open up the scoring. And Ben just had a really good game. And as a rookie QB, you were kind of impressed because like I forget, wasn't there like some crazy stat like rookie quarterbacks never did well against Bill Belichick, but not so much Ben that time at least.
Yeah, I remember thinking when they, beat New England decisively and Ben really shredded their defense that the days of the New England Patriots owning the Steelers are over. And I was wrong.
It's funny because they beat Philadelphia the next week too, but
it was also undefeated. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was a magical. We actually did a whole episode about that 2004 season. It was really, even though they did not win a championship that year, it was just a magical year, and it really led into. I always felt like 2004 and 2005 were almost like one complete story.
Yeah,
and so they didn't technically win a championship in 2004, but it really set the stage for the championship they won the next year. So yeah, go back and listen to our episode on the 2004 season if you haven't heard it already.
Maybe we should make them into one, like go back and re-edit them like they did the Superman 1 and 2 a few years back. Richard Donner.
Yeah, there you go.
It's one big episode now. Sticking, now moving on to the Bengals. In the Bengals game, the playoff game where Vontaze Burfict hurt him. So, that era of the Cincinnati Bengals, were still kind of ticked off that we hurt Carson Palmer way back when. Or maybe not. Maybe they're just a bunch of dirty Cheapshot artists. I don't know. Take your pick. But that was the game where, like, after a sack, like, the Steelers weren't necessarily playing that well. But, like, as he's on the ground, like, Burfict is, like, kneeing Ben's shoulder. And he successfully separates Ben's shoulder. And so, like, Ben, like, I think Ben had to get carted off the field. And, like, the Cincinnati fans were throwing stuff at him. And so, like, at that point, they have to bring in Landry Jones, who I think throws an interception, right? And then Cincinnati goes into full Cincinnati. Bengals gonna Bengal. They fumble the ball, and Ben comes back out, like, with basically, like, half an arm. And like just literally like chucks the ball down the field to get them in the penalty range. Before he completes like a couple passes, and like Burfict like does Burfict stuff, and like they take a bunch of penalties and move them in the field goal range, and the Steelers pull out one of the most surreal wins in NFL history. I mean, it's not even in Steelers. That's one of the most insane. Like, it's literally a team just did not care that, like, the Bengals, like, I don't want to win. I just want to beat the heck out of the Steelers, and that'll be our win. So it's definitely odd. Ben only had one touchdown passing. He was 18 for 31, so his stats weren't really that good. But at the end of the game, like, he was pretty banged up. So.
Yeah, we talked about that in our Steelers Bengals episode, and how satisfying that win was, and how it was justice. It was just justice. But you're right about Ben. I mean, he came into that game and his shoulder was literally separated, and he couldn't really throw the ball more than 5 or 6 yards. And it's a miracle that they got as far down the field as they did, because at that point they didn't have I don't remember how many timeouts they had, but they really didn't have the option to really stop the clock a lot. So that's all he could do was throw short passes and hope that the clock doesn't run out before you get in some kind of field goal range. It was raining too, so they had to get, pretty far down the field to get in good field goal range. So that was just amazing that he was able to come back into that game and rescue them from their season being over.
It is weird how many times on this list, like Ben is like hurt or banged up. It's like he's like the Incredible Hulk. You wouldn't like him when he's angry. It's like you can't hurt him. You're just gonna tick him off, and then he's gonna like really take it to you. So don't hurt Ben Roethlisberger. I guess I don't know.
So what number was that, Steve, for that one?
That was 6.
Okay.
Siete, if you're is it seis? Seis, sorry. Now we're on to cinco, which is definitely 5 in Spanish. I don't know what it is in Portuguese. You're on your own on that one. So we're going to this is one of Ben Roethlisberger's 500-yard passing games. I think he has 3 or 4 of them. No, he has 3. And so the Steelers needed to win this game to have the playoff position. This was week 14 in 2017. And this is they played the Ravens. And he ended up to absolutely I think he threw only 2 touchdowns, but he threw 500 yards passing. And they won on a field goal, and then I think they made a last second. The defense was really not that good that season, and they kind of made a defensive stand against Joe Flacco and the Ravens. They couldn't even get in the field goal range close enough for Justin Tucker. So I think though I was watching some of the highlights, and one of the receivers he caught the ball, but his foot was literally standing on the white when it wasn't even close. It's like you literally need to move your foot back a foot. So, but the Steelers definitely pulled that out. And what happened at the end of that season was, I remember that because they had lost to Jacksonville earlier that year, but they ended up having. I don't think they had home field the whole way. Did they have home field the whole way in 2017?
No. They were the 2 seed.
Yeah, because New England was still the number 1 seed, I think. And so they ended up playing Jacksonville, and they literally lost to Jacksonville and Blake Bortles in 2017 in the wild card game. A lot of these seasons end the same way, especially on the back half of Ben's career. They get blown out in the playoffs, and he didn't really Ben really didn't have that great of a playoff success after the early 2010s for whatever reason.
Yeah, that Baltimore game, that was I want to say Sunday night game. It was a night game. I remember that. And I was at that game, and they were down. They had to come back in that game from, I believe, a 2-score deficit. Is that correct?
I thought they had a lead in it. They had a lead, and I think they blew it.
Okay, but they did have to come back at one point.
Yeah, because they were down by 3 points at one point. Now they might have been more than that, but he threw the ball 66 times. 500 yards passing, normally you lose. 400 yards passing, you normally lose, but 500, I think he still has the most 500 yards passing games in NFL history. I don't put a lot of stock in passing yards. I think it's more impressive touchdowns and interceptions, but
so you're right. He has 3 regular season games with 500 yards. He did have a playoff game with 500 yards also.
Yeah, that was one against Cleveland.
That was one against Cleveland. So
yeah,
to your point about not putting a lot of stock in passing yards, if you're way behind, you can pretty easily rack up a bunch of passing yards.
Yeah, it's the opposite of rushing yards. If you get 100 and some yards rushing, it's you almost always win. Where if you get 400 yards of passing, you almost always lose. It's weird. It's a weird corollary, I guess.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Is that the fancy word I'm looking for? Sure, why not?
Sounds right.
Sounds legit. Well, we're just cooking on through this list here. Maybe you remember this. I don't know. Were you at this game or not? But week 15, Green Bay Packers versus the Steelers in 2009. The Steelers are coming off a Super Bowl win, and they are in a slump. They have lost to the Ravens, Raiders, and Browns. I remember that game against the Browns. That was that horrible weather game. So the Steelers are in the Raiders. I think that was the game where Terrell Pryor ran like the opening play for like 80 yards or something stupid like that.
That was not the Terrell Pryor game. That was a few years later. But that was a game where the defensive back, who I'll never remember his name, had the game-winning interception in his hands, and he just dropped it.
Yeah.
And then the Raiders won on like a last-second touchdown, I want to say. And that Cleveland game was like a Thursday night game where it was like 4 degrees.
Yeah.
And I've never seen a football team less interested in being in the stadium than the Steelers were that night. They just were like, "Oh my God, it's so cold. Let's just go home now." And it was like, but there's only the first quarter now. Let's just go home. So you're right. They were really slumping that at that point. And I think that was the infamous Mike Tomlin, "We're going to unleash hell."
Yeah.
speech.
Yeah. And then I remember like the whole rest of the season, like Mark Mann was like, they couldn't even unleash heck.
But the Green Bay game was a good one. So go ahead and talk about that.
Yeah. So irregardless of the slumping Steelers, they come in against the Green Bay Packers, who I think I looked at. I think they went 9-7 that year, but they had some guy named Aaron Rodgers. You ever heard of him at quarterback? I don't know if he ever did anything.
He was okay.
But, yeah. He
choked in the
decent.
playoffs a lot.
So what happened was Ben threw for 500 yards passing in 3 touchdowns, and he outdueled Aaron Rodgers. I didn't look up Aaron Rodgers' stats, but Ben has 500 yards and 3 touchdowns, which is pretty impressive. And probably the most impressive was his play at the end of the game to Mike Wallace to win it.
Roethlisberger throws, end zone, touchdown, Mike Wallace with no time left.
So after that amazing catch by Mike Wallace, I do believe he went and interviewed Barack Obama on 60 Minutes, which was being shown except on the West Coast.
I want to say that was a different Mike Wallace.
Yeah, I think so. But I know we were talking. I thought Mike Wallace made a really nice catch on the play, and Ben kind of held the ball. It was like backyard. It was like seriously like backyard football. Like that play's like the definition. Like he just sat back there. It's like you'd have been ticked at that with your friends. Like count the 5 Mississippi quicker, because it really wasn't the defensive back's fault. They really just didn't get any pressure on him. And so he threw a ball, and when he caught the ball, time had expired. So there was no way the defense could blow that game. And Chris Boswell, that tied the game, and then Chris Boswell kicked the game winner, and that was it. There was partying in the streets, and everybody was happy that the Steelers were still not going to the playoffs that year. I do believe they did not make the playoffs that year.
Correct.
That would have been 2009. So they couldn't even unleash heck. So it happens.
Yeah, that was a heck of a throw, because it was like he ran around and held the ball for forever, but he still had to thread a needle in the very side of the end zone.
Yeah.
I mean, it was, in fact, I think they even had to review that because it was so close to the sidelines. Yeah, that was just classic Ben winning games, by himself. And when those 2 quarterbacks met again the next year, it was in the Super Bowl. And everybody was kind of like, oh boy, that first matchup was amazing. I can't imagine what the second one's going to be like. And of course it wasn't quite as,
it was just kind
didn't
of
work out quite as well.
Ho-hum game. I don't know the ho-hum. It was just kind of like your average win, by a team.
Yeah. And then oddly enough, Rodgers and Roethlisberger did not face each other again until Ben's final year, 2021. That was the next time they would actually play against each other. Wasn't until 2021.
Huh. Now, was that when Mike Tomlin was winking at him?
Yeah. Come sign with us.
Yeah,
wink, wink.
That was a total bunch of malarkey. It's like every quarterback that was a free agent, oh, they're going to sign him. It's like, yeah, the Steelers are going to have 18 quarterbacks. You're going to have Deshaun Watson, Aaron Rodgers, who else? Matthew Stafford, like any
Jimmy
quarterback.
Garoppolo.
Yeah, it's like Baker Mayfield, like every quarterback that like is even rumored to be being traded is going to be on the Steelers now.
Oh, Russell Wilson. You forgot Russell Wilson.
Yeah.
He would have been the third stringer behind,
Yeah.
Rodgers and
Yeah.
Deshaun Watson.
Nice.
He waits. He throws the pass, and it's intercepted. John Polamalu at the 40, 35, 30.
Steelers versus Ravens is the best rivalry in all of pro sports. And now that series has been chronicled in Pittsburgh versus Baltimore, the unofficial history, an all-new book from the Pittsburgh Sports Memories podcast. Relive all the fierce battles and exciting moments from this amazing rivalry. There were legendary plays like Troy Polamalu's pick six and the immaculate extension, and there were crazy incidents like Joey Porter chasing Ray Lewis into the parking lot, or the Ravens putting a bounty on Hines Ward. We cover all of it, including some stories you may never have heard. Buy a copy for yourself, or get one as a gift for the Steelers fan in your life. Find it on Amazon, or see the link in the show description of this episode. And thanks for supporting the podcast.
Number 3, the Broncos game AFC Championship game. So the Steelers are the 6th seed, and they need to break the AFC Championship game jinx. They do so in style as Ben smokes Denver like a cheap cigar, just to channel my inner Mike Lang. He really did have himself a day that game. It wasn't like he was going against like a schlub defense. Like John Lynch and Champ Bailey were in that secondary, although they did pick on Dominic Foxworth a lot too. So he really had a really good game. 2 touchdowns, no interceptions. I think he had a rushing touchdown at the end. The probably the most Ben play that was like, I remember they had scored on a play by Bettis, but like Hines Ward was like lined up wrong or something. So they had to replay the play. And it's like, well, if we just set her for a field goal, because it was after an interception, it was just like, we set her for a field goal. It's not the end of the world. But no, Ben runs around and like throws like a pass, like, and he even said in interviews he thought it might have got intercepted, and it went through over a guy's hands, and it went right to Hines Ward in the back of the end zone. And that was pretty much the ball game, wouldn't you say? I mean, the Denver tried to make a little bit of run in the second half, but not really.
It really was the ball game, and I said it we did an episode about the Steelers Broncos rivalry because they've played each other in so many playoff games. I said in that episode that when that play happened, I was like, oh my gosh, we're going to win the Super Bowl, because that was the complete opposite of all those later Chuck Noll years, all those Bill Cowher years of, playing it safe and, game manager, quarterback, we'll hold them with our defense. And that never worked in a clutch playoff game. And like you said, they could have that's what Cowher would have done his whole career before that. That's what Noll would have done the whole latter half of his career. Just take the field goal there. And they're like, no, forget that. We're going for the touchdown. And I said it. I was like, "Oh my gosh, we're gonna actually win the Super Bowl, because this is what's different." All those times we lost the AFC Championship game, and that one moment to me was what changed everything, or at least not changed everything, but what was indicative of the fact that things had changed. If that makes sense?
Oh yeah, I mean that's it. I can't say I felt that way, but it's always like it was such a like. We scored and the refs like took it away. I was like, okay, what a cheap penalty. Maybe lined out. Did that affect the play? No. But it's like, okay, fine. You want to call your crap penalty? Oh, we'll score anyway. Call crap penalty on that one. So, I mean, and that's like you said, like before we would have like settled for the field goal or done something really conservative or thrown an interception. And it's just like, we got this new quarterback and it's just, that's not going to happen this time, is it?
Yes.
So we're on to number 2, and I think I'm going to start some controversy here, Tim. I don't know. I know you might not agree with me on these next 2 here. So I'm going to Super Bowl 43. And that would,
Ooh.
yeah, I know. You thought that was going to be one, didn't you? Pulling the rug out from under you. So the background on this one is the Steelers are out to win their 6th Super Bowl. So what happened was only like the defining moment of Ben's career, I would say. It's probably one of the biggest plays in Steeler history outside of like the Immaculate Reception, or I don't know what else. What other single play in Steeler history could you, like, one of the Super Bowl touchdowns or something? I don't know.
Yeah, that one, this Antonio Holmes play is right up there with the Immaculate Reception. Like, there should be a statue
Of him, like, leaning. Is Anthony
Yeah,
or Marty
really
going
sick.
to be on the statue like how they have it for, like, Mario? Like, yeah.
for Richie
Yeah.
Pilons. He could be the Richie
Yeah.
Pilons, yeah.
But Ben drives him down the field in the last minute. Santonio makes a bunch of great catches. There was actually a holding play to start the drive. It's like 1st and 10. That's too easy. Let's do a 1st and 20. And they picked it up. And I mean, I don't remember the whole drive. And we've never done a Super Bowl 43 episode yet. We'll have to do that in the near future here. But yeah, he just throws a pass that's unreal at the end. And then there was a play before that too, where I remember it went through Holmes's hands. It wasn't the greatest pass by Ben, but it was definitely catchable. And they both thought they had lost the Super Bowl at that point, but they came right back the next play, and good for them. They made the catch, and that won the game. And that all they do was make a play at the end there. Thank God Brett Kiesel, that was Woodley. That was Woodley who hit Kurt Warner, because could you imagine if Kurt Warner would have been able to throw that ball to Larry Fitzgerald somewhere, anywhere, with Ike Taylor desperately trying to cover him, and that's Ike Taylor's worst situation, a jump ball. It could have been a statue of Larry Fitzgerald somewhere catching a pass, a Hail Mary pass. Do you think there's an alternate universe out there where that actually happened?
There probably is, but I don't want to.
You don't want to think about it. Well,
No.
we live in our own timeline, so thank goodness for that. But I mean, like we said, it's one of the biggest. It's probably, I would say, it's probably the biggest play of Ben's career. But since we did biggest games, that's why I didn't count it as one. But so what could outdo the Super Bowl touchdown catch? Any guesses, Tim?
Boy, I have a few guesses, but I'm not going to give them away in case you ask for honorable mentions.
Okay. Well, I went with number one because I remember this, and this has impressed me to this day. The Twins 6 touchdown games, the back-to-back 6 touchdown games.
Mm.
That's the most I don't think I've ever seen, like, outside of like college, like, one of those like Mike Leach teams that just like, or June Jones that like just throws the ball all over the place. Like, I've never seen like a team like score literally number one, just score 6 touchdowns 2 weeks in a row. But your quarterback throws 6 touchdowns and no interceptions 2 weeks in a row. That's 12 touchdowns in 2 weeks. I mean, so the first game was a week 8 in 2014. That was against the Colts, and they had a big lead. They had a 35 to something. They'd scored 35 points by halftime, and they ended up almost like they had a couple fumbles in the second half, and Andrew Luck kind of drove the Colts back into the game. But then I remember at the end, he threw to Heath Miller, like they had to roll him out on like 3rd down instead of settling. Once again, instead of settling for a field goal, they rolled Ben out, and he literally just threw it right to Heath, and they caught it. And that was, I think that was the beginning of the Bell and Brown teams. That offense was just unreal. And I mean, when you can throw 6 touchdowns, that's a pretty good way to enhance your Super Bowl career or your playoff Hall of Fame.
Yeah, what I remember too about that game was he had not only the 6 touchdowns, but that was one of the 500-yard games.
Yes.
And in the National Football League, oddly enough, it's really interesting. one of the oldest records in the National Football League is passing yards in a game. It was set in 1951, I believe, by Norm Van Brocklin against a team that doesn't exist anymore. It's like the New York Yanks or something.
Wow.
And it was something like 550 yards passing. And that was early 50s when the NFL was not a passing man's game. And all these quarterbacks over the years, right? You just name the list of great quarterbacks, all the aerial offenses and all the roles that have made passing, easier and made playing defense harder, right? So passing numbers have just skyrocketed since that time. Yet no one's been able to break that record for passing yards in a single game. And Ben was at like 520 with like 8 minutes left in the game. And I was at that game and I was looking at my phone and I was checking because I'm like, how many yards does he have? But then by that point, they were up by a couple scores. And so they just ran the ball to run out the clock. And that's why that record's so hard to break, because you have to either be in a game where you're trading scores back and forth. And for most of that game, Andrew Luck was the Colts quarterback. For most of that game, they were just back and forth. And then the Steelers pull away at the end. And then at that point, you're a jerk if you're throwing, right?
Yeah.
But man, he was so close to breaking that record, and that would have just immortalized him because he would have broken literally a 70-year-old record. So that's what I just remember. I was like, come on, just throw one deep pass to the tight end. I'm sure it'll be wide open because, they're just expecting you to run. But again, it would have been, in this day and age of 24/7 football coverage and social media, like, oh, that wasn't, they're throwing just to break a record. That doesn't mean anything. That's not real football. So it would have gotten scrutinized. I get why they didn't do it, but man, I wanted them to.
I still think that's one of Ben's best. These two, I think, are his best games as a quarterback. I really do. It's like, I know he didn't, we'll go over what happened. But so the next week, week 9, so, okay, you had 6 in one game, 500 yards passing, right? It's like, no way you could repeat that, right? Well, he did. So he had another 6 touchdowns, and I don't know how many yards. How many yards did he have in that one? I did not write that down. It was like 300. I think he had like 300. Yeah. And he threw. And the crazy thing is he didn't throw any interceptions in 2 weeks and 6 touchdowns. That's a 12-0 ratio. That's like. There's only two. Like I said, it's either like some ridiculous college football or high school football thing or Madden football. That's it. That's the only like, I don't think even in college you see like stuff like that. I mean, maybe in Madden, but that's video game stuff. So yeah, he threw for 340 yards, but he repeats that 6 touchdowns. So 12 touchdowns and no interceptions. And they beat the Ravens.
Yeah, that was amazing that he was able to do that 2 weeks in a row. I mean, that was just unbelievable. And 12 touchdowns in 2 weeks. That was really when that offense, like you said, was at its absolute peak. And it's just a shame looking back that era did not produce a championship, because there were games where they were just so, the other team could score 30 points and it wouldn't have mattered.
Yeah.
Because they were just so good.
What did happen at the end is the Steelers ended up playing the Ravens again that year, and they lost to the Ravens 30-17. A 13-point loss, and Ben threw 2 interceptions. But the key to that was Le'Veon Bell was out that game, so that definitely hampered their offense. Without Le'Veon Bell, it's definitely a way different offense.
And that's something that, it was a shame that they didn't win during that era, but Bell was hurt for that playoff game. The year after that, Bell and Brown were both out for the Denver playoff game, and Ben was playing with a separated shoulder, like we talked about. So there were definitely some years where, they had that really good offense, and they just didn't have all the pieces come playoff time.
And that defense, if they would have had just a little better defense, maybe they don't have to score. You can survive Bell being out 1 week and then come back the next and hopefully be able to get back to your scoring ways. But it wasn't to be. I don't know. I didn't look up like Brady or Marino or Montana. Has any of those guys that Tim, come close to doing that? 12 touchdowns and no interceptions?
I don't believe so.
I mean, Brady that 1 year threw 50-some touchdowns, and Peyton Manning did that too. But I mean, that's just. I never did look up how many touchdowns Ben ended up for the year. I mean, it was more than 12. I'm sure.
Mm-hmm.
And what other games, honorable mention games, were you thinking of for Ben?
So I was definitely thinking of the 6 touchdown game. So I'm glad you had that high on the list. And I that's a good pick, actually, because you're right. If you're doing games and not moments, then I think it's totally fair to put those above the Super Bowl win. Some of the other ones I had were the 2007 Monday night game at home against Baltimore, where Ben threw 5 touchdowns and all in the first half. The 2015 game where they destroyed Denver, not destroyed, it was 34-27, but that was the year that Denver won the Super Bowl, and they had that just, historically good defense. And Ben and Antonio Brown put up 34 points on them at Heinz Field. I always thought that was a really good win.
Was that like Osweiler's last game before they switched back to Peyton Manning? They were like, no, we're going to Peyton Manning. Yeah.
Well, they realized at that point, if we're going to win, the defense is going to win it for us, and we need a guy that, if we need a clutch play, can still get us a clutch play. And Peyton Manning was that guy, and Brock Osweiler was not. So yeah, I put those 2 games on there somewhere. As honorable mentions. You could maybe put the Immaculate Extension game on there against the Ravens on Christmas Eve.
I was thinking of that. I didn't look at his stats for that one, but I did think of that one, and I didn't. Maybe he could knock Super Bowl 40 off, but I just didn't want a Super Bowl, and I know Ben didn't do well there, but that's why it's 10 or 11 on the list.
Yeah. So you could put that on there, and I think it's. That one's overshadowed because Antonio Brown's the one that made the big play. It's like making a Terry Bradshaw list and putting the Immaculate Reception game. Nobody remembers how Bradshaw played in that game. They just remember the play at the end. And then the only other game I thought of, Steve, was and we've certainly covered it ad nauseum on this show, but the 2005 Colts game. Because he did lead them down the field for 2 touchdowns right at the beginning of the playoff game.
I thought I had that. I guess I didn't have that one. I know I had it in there, and then he made the tackle, yes.
And then he made the tackle, right? Which they don't win the Super Bowl that year if he doesn't make that play. So you could have put that game on there too. But no, I think your list is fine. I don't disagree with any of it, but those are some honorable mentions.
Well, it's more for the tackle. It's weird that game although he played a pretty good game, at least in the first half. I think if he has a better second half, because I remember in the second half he didn't do much of that Colts game, but in the first half they came off throwing and he actually played pretty well. So,
and to be fair to him, they were up 21-3, and Cowher, in typical Cowher fashion, was like, okay, well, let's just keep our lead. Let's run the ball. And honestly, to be fair to Cowher, that should have worked if not for just a horrific bad call on the Troy Polamalu interception. They would have just iced that game, and that would have worked, and they would have won by 11 points or whatever. But then, as we detailed, and as I'm sure a lot of you listening remember, mass chaos ensued after that. So.
Well, that's the list. I don't have anything else to add to it except for that, Tim. Ben, we're going to miss him now that he's gone. Hopefully Kenny Pickett or Mitchell Trubisky can get their own list here, or maybe Mason Rudolph. I doubt it, but I like Mason Rudolph, but I think he's going to have to go somewhere else to find success. I think he's done with the Steelers, but anyway, maybe he'll prove me wrong. if you want to give us a like on all your podcast services, that'd be great. And check us out on Twitter. Tell me how you disagree with my list. I'll be sure to tell you how you're wrong. But thanks for listening, and we'll talk to you next time.